The following content is sponsored and does not necessarily reflect the views of WATD Radio. Now, Paul Ponders on 95.9 WATD. Be a part of the show. Call or text 781-837-4900. Now, here's your host, Paul Solano.
Good afternoon. Paul Solano was not here. The busiest guy in America is doing an event for the Boston Bruins legends, and he'll probably be with us in a few minutes, so be prepared to talk to Paul. Tim, you look good back from vacation.
Oh, thank you. You're looking marvelous, too. Thank you.
Well, there's only so many handsome guys in the area.
That's
but
right.
Is there any town so far that hasn't claimed that the one if by land or two if by sea went through their town?
Not that I've heard today, no. No,
Yeah.
just up in that area. Yeah.
Yeah,
Down here we're okay.
Yeah, we don't have to put on a parade to celebrate or anything. We can
No.
go visit Lexington and we'll watch their parade.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I have two important guests today, and Paul was going to be jealous that he had to face another day without getting in with SARS. So we have Major Sean Keegan.
Yeah. Hello. Thank you for having me.
And we have David Boyle of the Pembroke School Committee.
I would say your younger, better-looking brother, so that's okay.
Yeah, we actually, it's nice that we have the panel that we have because we are talking about, our kids, our town, our future, what's important, what's going on. Sean is, for the first time, running for public office, and I'll tell you, he cuts a mean figure out there. He's doing great. And you're learning all the tricks of the trade.
Oh yeah, this is a whole new world for me, and it's been eye-opening.
Yeah, you've done things like door knocking and...
Yep, getting out there, it's very much outside of my comfort zone, but getting out to try to listen, to hear what people have to say, get my name out there, but also hear what the concerns are of people so that if elected, I can try to work towards a solution to those.
Well, that sounds good, and one of the things that we wanted to talk about from your perch in the election, you've got the opportunity to make some headway in you got people that are in it strictly for the party involvement. And
right. So the main thing I'm trying to do, the board in Pembroke has over years become a group of people with the same views and the same leanings. And I am not arguing about the efficacy of those views. But what has happened is the rest of the town is feeling unheard. I'm just trying to be a voice of reason to kind of try to pull it back to the middle and get everybody heard. And, not everybody's going to get what they want, but at least if you feel like you're heard, then you know it's a fair process and that your voice matters. And that's what I'm trying to get back to.
Well, there are all sorts of, parent help groups and things like that. You've got, PTOs and, you've got to get everybody in play. It seems to me you've got to reach out, and you've equaled that so far. You've done a good job at getting out.
Thank you.
Meeting the people, and I knew you obviously from politics, and your wife is in business in the Chamber of Commerce with
yes.
With me, and she's a special person too.
She is a force of nature. Yes, and she actually was the one who convinced me to do this. And I'll tell you, campaigning is not something that I enjoy, but she's really good. So as a campaign manager, she is keeping me on the ball. And I feel I'll do well when I get in there. My military training or my personality. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I feel pretty good about identifying the issues, coming up with practical solutions, and seeing it through to get the results. But this campaigning.
Well, Sean, I'll tell you what I always call a funny point. They always say that behind every good man is a better woman and a shock mother-in-law. So that's I used to joke that most people in town knew my wife better than they knew me, and I was the school committee guy.
Right.
But I will kind of comment, and I agree with you 100%. One of the problems I have, and I'll be starting my 9th year on the school committee, is I love when people around town say, well, there's no transparency, there's no this, there's no that. And I say, when was the last time you were at a meeting?
Right.
And they look at you. I mean, we've had meetings literally, I've had people, nobody there. Now, granted, we're online, we're on TV.
Yep.
When we were doing the COVID meetings, I call it the Hollywood Squares.
Right.
And we probably had 300 people, 400 people. And I'm like, where are you now?
Right.
And now the problem is, we're kind of wrapping up the budget season, we're waiting on some stuff from the governor. And, people all of a sudden going, well, what about this? What am I going? We started this process 6 months ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's all in black and white. Everything's there. It's on the website.
Yep.
It's, we had a whole big issue, with the mold in the schools.
Yep.
$166,000 later, there's more mold probably in your house than there is in the Pembroke Public Schools. You know what I mean? It's just like you're trying to tell people, and I get it. It starts on the Facebook and the social media, and I love the concern. Mm-hmm. But I said, very few of those people come to the meetings. You know, and we did a whole presentation. I still see signs around town. Learn the truth. I'm like going, okay, good luck to you.
Right. No, I agree. A lot of people have said to me that the town needs to be more transparent, and while I agree, I think that there's an onus on the residents to try to be involved too, like you were saying, because I don't see a lot of that, and that's what another part that I want to get the communication both ways going better with the town.
Well, I chuckled because someone put on Facebook, and I'm not on social media, but my wife,
good for you.
It said when my wife, when she was alive, would be like, I can't believe that woman said, I'm like, Aaron, relax. Right? It's not bothering me. But people said, I was against vocational education. I tried to get my son to Norfolk Aggie. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm a guy who's against it, why am I trying to put my kid into a vocational program?
Right.
And then you try to explain to somebody, you've got to look at the whole big picture of this. And it's going to be a very unique discussion. But I said this to me, town meeting could vote 100%. We could vote at the ballot box 100% to be in favor of voc ed. If an X amount of town, I don't know the number off the top of my head, vote against us, we don't get in.
Right.
You know what I mean? So does that mean we're against vocational education? No.
No,
but
of course
it's just, but that's, you're trying to say to people, there's a bigger process here. It's not like all of a sudden you say, hey, South Shore Votech, accept us.
Right.
We want to be part of this. And it's not that easy. And then the initial investment, then you say, okay, where's that money going to come from?
Right.
And again, I think you'll learn this if you get on, is, you're a steward of the town. Sometimes you may not agree with what's going on, but you look and say, I got to think this out for a second and say, okay, we have to put money here, or we don't have to put money here. It all depends. Again, an interview like this, I say, will probably get twisted, and I'll be against voc ed, and you're the meanest guy in the world. So,
we happen to disagree on this one too. So, people ask, your brother's, opposed to you in the, the realm of voc ed. And I said, he's still my brother.
But I'm not against it. Like I said, it's the reality of it.
Right.
As I said, what people don't understand, as I said, if we vote 100% at town meeting to do it, if we vote at the ballot box 100% to do it, in the opposing towns that make up, I think it's 10 towns right now at South Shore Voc, and I don't know what the number is. I can't remember if it's 3 or 5 or whatever. If they vote against us, we don't get in.
Right.
There's, our votes are basically a waste of time. And it's not that it's a waste of time, but it doesn't mean anything. It's basically someone saying, nope, we have enough member towns. We want the seats going to our kids. You have no say in the matter. Thanks. Figure out another option. We were thinking, someone brought up a great point in one of the last meetings, is if the state could open vocational schools, regionally, take that money and basically sit there and say, okay, for the people that don't have it right now, but, like Duxbury doesn't have it, whatever. Okay, Duxbury, you get X amount of seats. Pembroke, you get X amount of seats. Whatever it had, Carver maybe, whoever, like our touching towns that aren't involved in it. Right. I think that would be a great idea.
Well, Northeast Regional Vocational Technical School in Wakefield has exactly that type of program put together.
Yeah.
They 12 cities and towns that they have a conglomerate, and they were an exciting place to send your child because there's 26 shops. There's a gymnasium named for our dad.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
he was actually on the Voc school committee back then.
Yeah.
But the other part of this too is the financial part, because I believe, first of all, I'm all for Votech. My son's a welder. My porch was built when we were still part of Silver Lake by the Votech on my house, and they did an amazing job. But I believe the numbers I've heard is like $450 a year per household for 30 years.
Raising the tax rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which that might be a concern for people, but I think it's well worth it to invest in the future of Pembroke, or the children, the kids. I think it's well worth it, but there may be some concerns from some of the citizens.
Sure. Well, again, I always tell people that's what being part of a community is about. When they first were doing the rec center, a lot of people complained, well, I don't know if you've been to that rec center. That is one of the busiest darn places I've ever seen, in town. What's going to happen during the summer? Hey, let's see what happens.
Right.
But during the winter, there's more people in there walking the track, doing classes, playing pickleball, kids coming in afterwards, after-school programs. I've seen wrestling. I've seen basketball. Lance Kennedy is doing an amazing job.
He's doing
his
a great
staff.
job, yes.
He's an incredible guy.
Yeah.
We were lucky to have him.
Very lucky,
We really
yes.
were. Now we've got the public safety building coming in.
Right.
And a lot of people. So I hate to say, a lot of times, if you're a senior, wouldn't I fall into that category? I'll be
Me too.
64. But a lot of times, well, geez, I'm not going to use a rec center. Then you're like, well, yeah, actually, I do.
Right.
But then there's people that say, well, I don't use a senior center. I'm 30 years old. Well, again, you're part of the community. It's like not having kids in schools. You still have to pay for the schools.
Exactly.
You pay for the roads. You're part of that community. And again, usually, and I say this in politics, again, respectfully, if you get on the board, I always use the same line that my frozen food melts at Stop and Shop. Because people stop you and sit there and say, oh, I want to talk to you about such and such. And you can't tell someone no.
Right.
You're an elected official, so you stand there and you kind of smile. And, and I've had it on both ends where people come and say, thank you. I appreciate your stance on X, Y, Z. And I've had other people tell me what they think of me. And usually when they wave, there's one finger involved.
Right.
It's but you take it.
Right.
You can't take it personally.
Kind of unavoidable. Yeah.
So it works out. You got to have a nice level.
Yeah.
Well, this is a good time to take a break, I think. We'll give you a chance to get your feet back under you, and we'll go to Tim and pay some bills.
Attention WATD listeners, don't leave any money on the table. Call Performance Appraisal LLC and appraiser Arthur Boyle and Associates. Arthur may be reached at 781-293-6900 or Boyle6900 at AOL.com. Since 1994, Performance has developed many niche services ranging from appraising single-family homes to providing expert witness testimony. Again, call our own Arthur Boyle at 781-293-6900. South Street Diner, located at 178 Nealon Street, Boston, is Boston's only all-night dining destination, open 7 nights a week for late-night eats. Yep, that's 24/7 in my book. Owner Saul Seidel has grown this former iconic Blue Diner to be the place to go for keeping the party going or filling your stomachs before you head home to the South Shore or the Cape and the Islands and listen to WATD along the way home. Ask Saul about his grandmother's banana bread recipe, the Boston cream pancakes, umpteen eggs Benny offerings, and tell him that Paul Ponders sent you.
Have you heard about Pembroke Collision? Price and quality don't often collide under the same roof. Not so at Pembroke Collision at 192 Mannaquisett Street in Pembroke. Pembroke Collision will work with you and your insurance company to get you back on the road in a safe and satisfactory vehicle. Put your trust in Ben Bastianelli and his crew at Pembroke Collision. Just call 781-293-4040 or find them on Facebook. Pembroke Collision, happy to work for you. Have you tried Brianville Pizza Kitchen? From antipasto to baked ziti, specialty gourmet burgers, over 30 different kinds of pizza, and that's steak and cheese. Come on in and they'll show you why they made a reputation as being the best steak and cheese sub in the area. There's nobody that puts it together like your friends at the Brianville Pizza Kitchen. Chicken wings and fingers and the famous flavors complement their stir-fry dinners. If subs and wraps aren't enough for your table tonight, expand into Greek and Caesar salads, maybe even a calzone. Anyway, it's all good at the Bryantville Pizza Kitchen. And don't forget, invite them to your next catered event. They'll bring the food. Bryantville Pizza Kitchen. Call them at 781-293-9857.
Paul Ponders continues on 95.9 WATD. Once again, Paul Solano.
You recognize the voice as Paul Solano's Phil, and this is Arthur Boyle, and I'm here with my brother David, who's going to be the speaker, the commencement speaker at Springfield College.
Yes, congratulations.
And
that's quite an honor.
That's pretty cool. I'll be honest with you. That's it's somewhere like awe-inspiring. You say, and again, Arthur and I grew up similar, vibes. We have the same threads running through us. But you say to yourself, last year they had Billie Jean King. This year you have Dave Boyle. I got to be a little creative, I think. And
I think it's a step up.
Yeah. Oh, that's priceless.
We have on the other side of the comedy line.
Well, I was laughing when Dr. Cooper had called me. We always joke there's a brother in between us. We call him the famous one. He won the ring with the Red Sox and all this type of stuff. And so when the president called me and she said, would you be interested in doing this? And I said, Dr. Cooper, you called the wrong Boyle. I said, this is David. I think you wanted Michael. And she says, no, we want you. And she said, if you want to share the stage with Michael, that'd be great. And I was like going, okay, that's interesting. And I would be like sharing with Arthur.
You'll note none of them asked for me.
Well, I always tell the same joke. When I was at school, I was always Mike's brother. So I went like 3 years because he did grad work, and I was Mike's brother.
Right.
Someone said, what's his name? I don't know. We just call him Mike's brother. So it's kind of the running joke up there. Right? He and I got an award probably 10 years ago, and they introduced us at the awards ceremony as Mike Boyle and his brother.
Oh, no.
It was hysterical. It was absolutely... I still chuckle about that.
That's funny.
So, but no, it's going to be 10,000 people, they say. 10,000 people.
Nervous?
No, you know what's funny?
Not yet.
Not yet. Asked me that morning.
Right,
I'm shaking like a leaf. No, I've written the speech so many times in my head. I really got to put it down on paper. And it's funny. We share the bond. Your sister went to Springfield for 2 years.
Right.
I knew your sister Kim very well. It's a special person that goes there, and I probably it's the same thing if you went to Harvard, Dartmouth, Princeton, Bridgewater. There's a certain type of young man and young woman that thrives at Springfield. Mm-hmm. I used to joke saying you drink the Kool-Aid, you buy into the spirit, mind, and body philosophy and humanics, kind of service above self, and kind of giving yourself. And knock on wood, it's worked for me.
I'm sure you're going to do great. I just a little anecdote. I in the military, I graduated as the soldier of the cycle in basic training, basically the top graduate.
Wow.
A humble brag right there. But so I had to give a speech. And I'm standing up at the lectern in front of all these people. There was a general there. There was a bunch of colonels, and that was all new to me. And the whole time I'm giving the speech, I'm hearing this, and I don't know where it's coming from. And it's driving me crazy. And I finally looked down, and my leg was shaking so hard it was hitting the side of the lectern. It was me making that noise. So I understand being a little nervous in front of people.
Well, I was always taught that you address somebody by their highest rank. And, I tell people, I have a major. It's a friend of mine, so don't...
Yeah, well, back then I was just a private, and it was very nerve-wracking.
Yeah, but that's quite. We actually had an uncle that was Green Beret, and that was back, I guess,
really?
when they picked 3. They used to test like 100, supposedly.
Right.
And they would pick 3.
Yep.
And I used to laugh. Uncle Don, we used to joke with him. He was still doing push-ups and sit-ups into his 80s.
That's impressive.
Amazing. I mean, just, I had the utmost respect for him. I just marveled at what that man was able to do for his entire career. He was just something special.
My son right now is attempting to go through selection.
Really?
For the Green Berets, yes.
Wow. He's
dedicated. He's out, actually today he's out doing a 20-mile ruck march to get himself in shape.
Good heavens.
Yeah.
So it could be in the shape. It would be a shape that is formed when I'm laying on my back.
Well, our brother Michael is a very well-known conditioning coach, and I always joke he has a shirt that says "Body by Boyle," and he won't let me wear it. He always used to say to me that I was not in shape. I said, Michael, I'm in shape because round is a shape.
Round is a shape, yes.
I'm okay. But so I told him, we used to always tease each other, and I said, well, at least I can grow hair, and you're bald, and I can try to lose weight. So
Nice.
So I probably just managed to annoy half the audience that might be bald or overweight, but don't worry about it, guys. We're all good.
We get the calls all week.
Yeah. Well, Ed Perry knows me.
So that's what they tell you, that if you're going to get in, get yourself fired.
Well,
Yeah.
I still do okay there. That the company's going to keep me for a while. I'm 28 years in at Martinetti now, so I think
28. That's impressive.
I tell you, counting what I call my restaurant hospitality time.
Yeah.
46 years in the business.
Wow.
You have a wonderful amount of contacts. I told you I'm blessed with great friends, knowing some amazing people. But my mother was always fascinated that I never had to wait in line at a restaurant.
Yeah, when you're the food and booze supplier, it's amazing how nice they treat you.
Well,
Right.
She used to tell the story. I think you were with her when she was down in Orlando. And they had remember they used to take a family trip and they all go down to Orlando.
Yeah.
And years ago, I'd gotten this guy tickets to see the NHL All-Star game in Boston.
Oh, wow.
Never forgotten. And one of my dear friends, Chuck Maloney, great kid. I think he's a Randolph guy, if I remember correctly. And I said to my mother, well, if you go down to Orlando, check in. What she didn't tell me, they said there was a 2-hour wait for dinner. My mother walked up to the hostess stand and asked for Chuck. And he walks out and he's like, can I help you? And she's like, I'm Dave Boyle's mom. She said you could get me a table on a 2-hour wait. And supposedly he did. That they were sitting down within about 10 or 15 minutes. My wife was like going, oh, heavens. I couldn't make that trip, and I don't remember why.
Yeah.
But, my mom was kind of impressed. She goes, honey, your name even works in Orlando. And I felt like saying in one restaurant in Orlando, and you found it.
She's not shy, huh?
No, our mother, definitely not.
She was the reason we got into politics in the first place.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She was a school committee member when it was an all-male panel, pretty much, and she came up with a platform on secretarial pay and help, and things that would be little items now were big items then.
Yeah.
Right.
And she won for the office of school committee member, and she won the second time, and then she decided to run for the city council, and she ran 3 times and won 3 times.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, she used to run. Her slogan was, I'm with Peg. She didn't even have Boyle on the thing. And she
I'm with
would win
Peg.
going away. I still tell a great story. I remember being in Boston one day, and I got pulled over by a Boston police officer. And he goes, I want one of those stickers. And I'm thinking, my heart's racing. I'm like a 20-something-year-old kid. I said, excuse me? He goes, my mother's name is Peg. He goes, I want one of those stickers. And I'm like, okay. And of course I had one with me, and I'm like, am I free to go? Like I said, I didn't get pulled. He goes, oh, no, he just want to know where you get the sticker. And now that you have one, go ahead.
That's great.
You remember that? She had the pink stickers. And,
Yeah, the pink stickers with the black lettering and the white highlights.
Yeah.
And people knew that they were from, at the time we grew up in Malden, you knew that you were from there because you saw the pink and black bumper sticker.
Yeah.
And they were only half sized.
Yeah.
As you remember, they were half the bumper sticker long.
Yeah.
And we had a good upbringing.
Well, we should give a shout out to Paul, who's not here today. He ran all of, your campaigns, Mom's campaigns. That Paul was always kind of like the fourth Boyle. There was
Man behind the scenes.
Yeah, there was 3 boys. And we had an older sister who has since passed. But Paul was always kind of that kid. Family events, said he ran all of our political stuff and campaign treasurer. I used to tell him that BC education would get him somewhere someday. So he did okay.
His BC education got you somewhere.
No, he's a great kid.
Yeah, Paul is, I call him the busiest man in the world. He's involved in a restaurant in Malden. He's involved in a catering service in Malden. He's involved with a credit union in Lynn.
Yeah.
He's got athletes that he represents. And, he just, I don't know how he finds the time to do it. But.
That's the thing. People like that impress me because I jumping into this race, managing my time is killing me. And these people that do all these activities and they seem to have plenty of time and plenty of free time, and how do you do it? I don't get it.
Makes you feel like a bit of a slacker.
Yes. Yes, it does.
I've always used the analogy, if you can get me the 8th day and the 25th hour,
Yeah.
I can do whatever you want. I said, just trying to jam it into 7 and 24 just doesn't always work that easy.
My wife's one of those people. She's involved in everything, and she has plenty of time to do it. I mean, you ask her, she says she doesn't.
Yeah, it's business people that set the goals for the day, sometimes for the week and sometimes for the month, but they get organized on a long-term basis. And, you just marvel at the fact that they can keep it all the balls in the air, I tell them.
Right.
It's...
But I think you have to. I think, there was something like type A people and all that stuff. And I always joke, I usually stay up late at night, and from being in the bar, restaurant, hospitality business, I get up at 5 o'clock every day. And, I've done it, and my wife didn't care for that very much.
I'm sure.
You kind of uneven the bed at that point, and the little 240-pound frame gets out on one side, you kind of bend the bed a little. But, you have to hit the ground running.
Oh, yeah.
And, again, I don't know how some people don't do it. I've only known one highly, highly successful person that would just kind of say, jokingly take his time, and that was Joe O'Donnell, who owned the Boston Culinary Group and Boston Concessions. Joe was the most laid-back guy you ever met, just always got it done.
Right.
But most other people, like, now, here we go, meeting, 8 a.m., boom. Joe would be like, Dave, stop by when you get a chance. Just, it's always very just open.
But it worked for him.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Amazing. And one of the nicest people. He and his wife, Kathy, two of the most generous people I've ever known. They're just fantastic people.
Yeah, they were major fundraisers for Malden Catholic High School, for one.
The Joey Fund.
And the Joey Fund is named for his son.
Yeah, his son passed. But, he raised a lot of money for those people. But, again, one of the nicest gentlemen you could ever meet, and they couldn't do enough for you. Again, I remember being in an event one day, and Karen had come there. We were going to see Billy. Matter of fact, your son played baseball, and I said, "Well, you got to do this speaking thing for them." And so I get there and I sit down, and Kathy said, "Oh, I can't believe you're traveling alone." And I said, "Well, my wife's actually upstairs in the room." She says, "Well, get her down here." So we had to reset a table for 8 and make it for 9,
right.
The whole thing. And I was like, Kathy, you don't. Said, oh yeah, she's not going to sit up in the room and eat, room service food and all this. I said, okay. But you look at people like that, and they couldn't do enough for you. They just
right.
nice people, and just always a class act.
Yeah, we said a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Doug Flutie. It just had come up in conversation. And I said, having met him a number of times, and he was in the same class with Paul at BC, you couldn't find a nicer guy. He was as nice to the 200th kid in line as he was to the first. And
right.
There's something magical about people like that.
Well, it's funny. You and I did some work. I do some private security work on the side. And remember, you and I worked with Donny Osmond, right?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. This was many years ago, but I think Arthur will remember the story. We had a gentleman show up, and he had 2 daughters with cerebral palsy.
Okay.
So in wheelchairs, the whole thing. The guy wheels him down. It's at the Wang Center. Gets the daughter down. She hands flowers. Donnie kind of gives her a hug and a kiss, and we get her all back. Well, by the time he gets her settled in to get to the second daughter, the show's over. Oh. So Arthur, you end up talking, and it turns out he was a Boston police officer, very nice gentleman, and he was telling us a story. So Arthur comes up, and I go down, and I said, "Hey, Mr. Osmond, any chance?" He's like, "Oh, I met her." I said, "She's a twin." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "There's another one in a whole wheelchair." So remember, we had to do the whole thing with the wheelchair and the.
And he did it.
It could not have been a nicer. Arthur.
Yeah, the local stations, the local TV stations, were making the story that he had, come down and done the 2 visits, and he wouldn't let anybody, step in front of them or get between he and these two kids. And he was amazing.
Yeah.
That you picture him, on the Donnie and Marie show and all that kind of thing. And, he just was so gentlemanly and so caring. And
class act.
Yeah, it was like literally like sitting next to your next door neighbor.
Yeah.
He couldn't do enough. And I've had the pleasure of working with some other people that weren't so nice.
I'm sure.
You and I were joking. I had mentioned Bob York. I always joke, one of my biggest thrills from my mother was I brought Bob York home. I hate to say he used the restroom, but that was kind of funny. And here's Mom jumping out of bed at 11 o'clock, and here's the 6'4" Bob York,
right.
Back in the Spencer for Hire days. And my mother, she was trying to call her sister at 11 o'clock at night to tell her that Bob York's in the living room, and
right.
I was like, holy heavens, Mom, But again, just another nice guy, unassuming.
Yeah.
Loved going around Boston. Would sign anything, shake hands with everybody. Couldn't. I think you said your old girlfriend or a roommate or something.
Yeah, we were. They were filming right outside of Northeastern, and everybody was standing out front waiting to get a glimpse of him. So she and I went around the back, and she went into get her mail, and she came out, walked right into him, but she was reading her mail, so she didn't even know it. And I'm sitting there awestruck, and he just thought that was the funniest thing in the world.
Well, it just proves there's some nice guys out there. And
I like to think all people are good. You come across the occasional bad one, but it's. I think a lot of the celebrities get bad rep. You talk about having time and.
Right.
You get pulled in 20 different directions. You see how these guys run these schedules.
Right, and some people, you catch them on a bad day, and that's their rep for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So rumors take off.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, bad news travels fast.
Right.
They say.
Right.
Well, that's it. I can't imagine if social media was around when we were younger. I'm not sure if I'd want to be a kid growing up now with cell phones, with social media, with all the things going on. And there's certainly some strong pluses to it. But
with all that going on, we're going to take a break.
Oh, there we go.
Come back and finish up. Take it away, Tim.
Attention WATD listeners, don't leave any money on the table. Call Performance Appraisal LLC and appraiser Arthur Boyle and Associates. Arthur may be reached at 781-293-6900 or Boyle6900 at AOL.com. Since 1994, Performance has developed many niche services ranging from appraising single-family homes to providing expert witness testimony. Again, call our own Arthur Boyle at 781-293-6900. South Street Diner, located at 178 Nealon Street, Boston, is Boston's only all-night dining destination, open 7 nights a week for late-night eats. Yep, that's 24/7 in my book. Owner Saul Seidel has grown this former iconic Blue Diner to be the place to go for keeping the party going or filling your stomachs before you head home to the South Shore or the Cape and the Islands and listen to WATD along the way home. Ask Saul about his grandmother's banana bread recipe, the Boston cream pancakes, umpteen eggs Benny offerings, and tell him that Paul Ponders sent you.
Have you tried Bryanttville Pizza Kitchen? From antipasto to baked ziti, specialty gourmet burgers, over 30 different kinds of pizza, and that's steak and cheese. Come on in and they'll show you why they made a reputation as being the best steak and cheese sub in the area. There's nobody that puts it together like your friends at the Bryanttville Pizza Kitchen. Chicken wings and fingers and the famous flavors complement their stir-fried dinners. If subs and wraps aren't enough for your table tonight, expand into Greek and Caesar salads, maybe even a calzone. Anyway, it's all good at the Bryanttville Pizza Kitchen. And don't forget, invite them to your next catered event. They'll bring the food. Bryanttville Pizza Kitchen. Call them at 781-293-9857. Have you heard about Pembroke Collision? Price and quality don't often collide under the same roof. Not so at Pembroke Collision at 192 Manakesett Street in Pembroke. Pembroke Collision will work with you and your insurance company to get you back on the road in a safe and satisfactory vehicle. Put your trust in Ben Bastianelli and his crew at Pembroke Collision. Just call 781-293-4040 or find them on Facebook. Pembroke Collision. Happy to work for you.
Paul Ponders continues on 95.9 WATD. Once again, Paul Solano.
And once again, filling in for Paul Solano is Arthur Boyle. And it's good to be here with amongst friends. And we're hoping to hear from Paul at the Bruins Legends hockey game.
He's having trouble locating Bruins to talk to, so I don't know if we're going to hear from him in the last 10 minutes, but that's the latest update.
Yeah, it's kind of a crowded fan area, if you will. It's playing in, I think it's in Brighton. Paul, if there's a way to find a way, he'll find a way. So we'll spill it over into the next hour if we have to.
That didn't go over well in the booth.
I don't think Ron's going to have that. Sorry, Arthur.
Yeah. I just, have wishful thinking.
I know. You can wish all you want and, do something on the other hand, see which one fills up first, right? Yeah. Anyways, no, Ron Dwyer and the Memories will be along at 1 o'clock today.
Well, it's going to be good to hear Ron because I don't get to see him as much as I used to in the old days. But I'll make it a point to see Ron today.
Okay.
I love the fact with Ron Dwyer, he tells some of the best stories I've heard. And I said I've worked concerts for 46 years. I think I worked my first concert up in Springfield. And, hear him talk about some of the people and how this song became this or a flip side of that. And, again, I've had the pleasure of meeting years ago Frankie Valli. And I grew up with my sister, playing Frankie Valli ad nauseum. And he's about 5'4". He probably weighs about 110 pounds.
Oh, wow.
He looks like a cardboard cutout. But again, one of the nicest guys you will ever meet. Will sign anything. Loves to meet you. 89. He's still touring.
89. Wow.
Actually, he's 91.
Is he 91?
Yes, he is.
I saw him at 89.
There you go.
I apologize. That he played the Wang Center a while back.
Tim is a huge Frankie Valli fan.
Right here.
Oh, yeah.
Box set. My box set. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's got something like 60 singles that have made the charts.
I think so, yeah. I'm not sure on the number. Mr. Dwyer will know that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, he said 43 hits for... what's his name?
Frankie Valli?
No, Frankie Valli, we touched on. He's, I think, 60-some-odd hit singles that hit the top 40. And Neil Sedaka.
Oh, Neil Sedaka. Okay, yep.
And he's got 40-something, But as David pointed out, Ron would be able to tell you exactly how many within one, perhaps.
Resident expert.
Yeah, he's an amazing source, and you can just get into listening to him, while you paint the house, mow the grass,
right.
Whatever you happen to do. Ron's part of the day, part of the weekend.
What I find amazing, though, is you'll hear him talk, and he's got that great voice. Ron Della Chiesa has that kind of voice. The other thing, but he'll sit there and say, "This came out, in December of '63, but they didn't release it actually until March of '64." And I'm saying to myself, I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. And this guy's pulling songs, and he'll say, "This was the B side of this," and I'm saying to myself, he must just be a wealth of knowledge. I think at some point it kind of goes in one ear and out the other at some point, but he seems to retain it. And he's got some, again, I just love some of the stories. I love hearing how certain things became. Again, we talked about my speech I'm going to do at Springfield. And one of the quotes I'm going to talk about is, if you remember Harry Chapin. And there's a great interview of him with a guy named Bruce Springsteen. And
never heard of him.
Yeah, never heard of him.
No.
The two of them went on to pretty good careers. And Harry says to Bruce, he says, "I play one night for me and one night for the other guy." And of course, Springsteen says under my breath, he goes, "Well, I'm not quite as generous as Harry."
Right.
But you think of those guys and you think, I talked about the Humanics philosophy of Springfield. Could you imagine being that successful that you say, okay, I'm going to play club, whatever, Friday night and Saturday night. Friday night's for me. Saturday night's going to go to the such and such food bank or the whatever.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That absolutely, to me, I find awe-inspiring.
Definitely. Not a lot of people will do that.
Well, again, it's just... it's funny. I drove down to do a thing in White Plains, New York, for a friend of mine from Springfield. Actually, it was similar to the TIC dinner when we used to do the thing here. Ron Bersani. Arthur hooked me up with Ron Bersani one day, and he said, hey, they're trying to do this wine dinner. Can you meet the guy? And I'm saying Arthur. I said, Arthur, I'm so busy. The company's getting bigger. Or I don't have the time. Ron Bersani is probably a better salesman than me. I tell people by the time I was done, I was supplying the wine. I was talking about the wine. I was helping host, and I was raffling off wine. And I said to myself, I was too busy to be doing this. Like, how did we do this? But they're just those people.
Right.
And when you meet a guy like Ron Bersani, we mentioned Christine James. Christine calls me, and I see the name pop up. I'm like, yes, what can I do for you?
What can I do? Yeah.
I tell that story many times, but she has a Rolodex second to none.
Yeah.
There's not a person.
You're dating yourself saying Rolodex. You know that, right?
Oh, boy. I had to think about that one, actually. Holy heavens. That's pretty crazy.
So, while it's been great reminiscing with the Boyles, you got any political questions for me?
Yeah, we killed off an hour, and we've enjoyed having.
Something.
We have the major, we'll call him.
Major pain in the neck.
That's the highest obtained rank, so we're going to address him throughout the campaign as Major Keegan. We'll have some fun as it goes, and he's going to work his fanny off, and it'll be, he'll be a force to be reckoned with, I think.
I hope so. I spent 28 years serving in the military and the Army, and would like to spend a few more years serving Pembroke.
One quick question: How are we as a community, how are we facing up against the terrorism thoughts? That people are saying, we're on the edge of, a dangerous situation.
At Pembroke, how is Pembroke dealing with it, or is
the South Shore and the vicinity of our world here?
I think we've got very strong people. There's terrorism out there. We all know it. There's school shootings keep happening and all that, but we're very resilient. And you see, whenever one of these type of things happen, you see the community come out and support each other and say, we're not giving into that. That's their job is to cause us to be scared, and we keep saying, no, we're not going to do that. That's an easy answer. We need to come up with solutions to stop some of this stuff that's happening, but we've got a very strong community, and I believe that we will prevail.
What do you think, Dave?
It's funny. I was in Atlanta when they had the bombing. I did the Olympics back in '96. I was there. And I do tell people, and this sounds very bizarre, one of the proudest days of my life as an American was after 9/11 was 9/12. Because everybody was an American.
Yes.
Everybody had a common goal. And I always tell people, I don't care what your race, religion, creed, what you believed, whatever. At that point, you were an American.
Yes,
and
100%.
We didn't necessarily know who had done the thing, but our thing was we're going to fight back.
Yes.
We got sucker punched, but America's coming back. And again, whether it was Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, whoever it was at the end of the day type thing,
they were going to pay.
Well, I want to thank my guests, Dave Boyle, the speaker at the Springfield College.
Yes, good luck with that.
Thank you, sir.
And we're going to call him Major Keegan. Major Keegan, we're going to refer to him as that because that's something to be proud of. And
I appreciate it, and thank you for having me here.
It was great having you. It was a very informal day with Paul, the host, being out, but we covered as best we could. Stay tuned for Ron Dwyer and the memories coming right up after this.